This is a redo of episode 25 because the workshop hosted by UPMC Sports Medicine is coming up again April 15th, 2026.
Hey everyone, so today we're talking about something huge, student-athlete mental health. But we're not just going to talk about reacting to crises. No, we're going to flip the script. We are building an offensive playbook, a real proactive set of strategies to build resilience before a crisis ever even has a chance to start. All right, let's get into it. To really get the kind of impact you can have, let me tell you this quick story. A psychiatrist recently shared that when she was a college freshman, she had a full-on panic attack just looking at her preseason schedule. She called her coach, ready to quit, but the coach, she didn't let her. She just listened, she talked her through it, and that one conversation, 20 years later, is still a defining moment for her. Think about that. A single act of empathy didn't just save a season, it completely shaped a life. It just shows you the role you play as a coach or a mentor is absolutely pivotal. So here's our game plan for today. First, we're going to unpack the new pressures our athletes are dealing with. Then, we'll get into spotting the warning signs and exactly what to do when you see them. And from there, we're shifting to offense. We'll talk about building a rock-solid identity and, my favorite part, reframing the entire idea of failure. The new pressure cooker. Because look, to solve a problem, you have to understand the field of play. And the pressures on today's student athletes, they are fundamentally different than they were even 15 years ago. It's a whole new world. Timeline from researcher Jonathan Haidt, it really tells a story. The first smartphone hits the scene in 2007. By about 2012, they are everywhere. And it's right around that exact same time that we start seeing this dramatic, really troubling climb in youth anxiety, depression, and self-harm. This trend started years before the pandemic ever hit. And the sheer scale of this new environment is it's staggering. Get this, 8 to 10 hours a day. That's the average screen time. That's literally a full-time job spent scrolling, comparing yourself, and being constantly evaluated on social media platforms that are designed to keep you hooked. This isn't just a distraction, you guys. It is a 24/7 digital pressure cooker. So this environment has really created a very specific kind of anxiety. Some experts are calling it FOP. The fear of people's opinions. It's that constant nagging worry about how you measure up, what people are saying, the fear of being judged or even just ignored online. And this fear, it strikes right at the heart of an athlete's sense of self-worth. So we know the pressures, but how do we actually spot an athlete who might be struggling? This is where we move from just understanding the problem to actually seeing it in our players. It's about seeing the field clearly. You're in a unique position. Unlike a therapist who might get an hour-long snapshot, you see your athletes every single day. You know their baseline. The key is to watch for any changes from that baseline. Are they suddenly really irritable or pulling away from the team? Have you noticed a big drop in how they're doing in school or in their sport? Are they always complaining about some vague headache or stomach ache? Or have their eating and sleeping habits totally changed? These aren't just off days, right? They could be signals that something deeper is going on. Seeing the signs is step one, but when you do have a concern, you need a clear course of action. You need a playbook. So let's get into the simple, actionable steps you can take. And please make no mistake, your role here is absolutely critical. A recent and honestly pretty eye-opening study found that 3 out of 4 high schoolers who are struggling will not go to a professional first. They're not going to call a clinic. They are going to go to a trusted adult. They're coming to you. So what do? Well, it's simple. You ACT. First, A is for acknowledge. Just acknowledge what you're seeing, but do it in a non-judgmental way. Simple words like, hey, I've noticed you don't seem like yourself lately, and I'm a little worried, can open the door. C is for collect. Collect details. Ask open-ended questions like, what's been going on? And then just listen. Finally, T is for take steps. Look, you don't have to be the clinician, but you do have to be the one who connects them to one. Now, when you're in that collect phase, you have to be willing to ask the hardest question directly. There's this huge myth that asking about suicide plants the idea in someone's head. It's just not true. The research shows the exact opposite. Asking directly, are you having any thoughts about killing yourself, is the single most important thing you can do to assess their safety and get them the immediate help they might need. Okay, now it's time to pivot. Everything we've talked about so far has been defense, reacting when there's a problem. For the rest of our time, we are going on offense. We're talking about building athletes who are mentally strong from the ground up, and it all starts with their identity. This right here gets to the absolute core of it. Way too many athletes build what we call a performance identity. Their self-worth is extrinsic. It's based on their stats, their wins, what other people think. And you know what? That's fragile. One bad game and it all comes crashing down. The goal is to help them build a purpose identity. This is intrinsic. It's based on things they can actually control, like their character, their effort, their values. That kind of identity, it's unshakable. And just look at this quote from Simone Biles. She's not just talking about proving what she can do, that's the performance. She's talking about how that whole process taught her about who she is. That's the purpose. That little shift in focus from what I do to who I am is the absolute key to building real, lasting mental fortitude. All right, our final offensive play. And honestly, this might be the most powerful one we have. It's all about completely changing an athlete's relationship with failure and frustration. The psychologist Dr. Becky Kennedy talks about this brilliant idea of the learning space. You know what it is? It's that ugly, messy, uncomfortable middle part between not being able to do something and finally being able to do it. The natural emotion in that space, it's frustration. But we've somehow taught our kids that feeling frustrated is a sign to stop, that it means they're failing. That's just wrong. Frustration is the feeling of learning. It's the feeling of growth. So the reframe here is absolutely vital. Instead of seeing an athlete's frustration and saying, hey, what's wrong? We need to say, yes, high five, you're frustrated. That means you're in the learning space. It means you're growing. This is good stuff. Let's keep going. That one tiny shift in language can transform a moment where they might quit into a moment of powerful resilience. When it all comes down to it, it's about this. Failure is not some event we should be afraid of. It's feedback that we can use as fuel. And as a coach, a parent, a mentor, you have this incredible opportunity to teach that lesson. If you can change the perspective on failure, you don't just change their game, you actually change their entire life. So, the only question left is, how are you going to start?
There's a workshop for mental health for student athletes, both college and high school, on April 15th, 2026 in Pittsburgh, hosted by UPMC. If you want the details, email me.